Hello class, welcome to segment 6 in lab 3, and in this segment we're going to explore something look in greater detail the idea of a function, and specifically we're going to focus on a function that is actually created or defined within our program as opposed to a function that we can import from some other location, from some other external file. So I want to go ahead and draw a comparison between what I have in this particular program and what I have in this particular program. So the NumPy module, and a module is basically something that contains a whole collection of various functions and variables and some other stuff that you might be able to make use of. And the way you bring all those functions in is you use the import statement to get all those functions in and get them in a basically set it up so that you can actually use those functions. And in this case, we looked at a function called np.zeros, which allows us to declare an empty array. And we also took a look at a function called np.array, which converts a Python list into an array. But here I'm going to focus on a function that's actually defined within the program itself. So in the case of a function you read in from a module, that's not actually defined within the program. But here we're going to take a look at how you can actually set up a function within the program and how to actually do something with it. So the basic setup for that involves using this keyword, if you can even call that a word, def, which I guess is short for define, def, and then a space followed by the name of the function that you want to create. So this is how the program is able to, this is how the computer is able to keep track of the function. So if you have, it's much like a variable name. Each individual variable name is holding onto a distinct piece of information. Each function is something that's set aside and then kept separate, and that's how the computer knows what set of tasks is actually, which function is which, and which function is actually supposed to do what. It's a way of keeping things straight and keeping things consistent, for lack of a better term. And one of the nice things about Spider is it will actually bold the name of the function for you. So it really helps. When using Spider to have this feature, because then you can easily pick out what the names of all your functions are if you've got a lot of them, or if you've got a function, then some code, then some function, and then something else. It's really nice for pinpointing what the name of the function is. And then after that is a set of parentheses, and these are actually really important, and we'll see why a little bit later on in this segment, but these are actually not trivial at all. These are in fact very important. And also, just like a for loop, like what we saw in segment 2, where we have this colon at the end here, we also have a colon at the end of this this line here, which basically defines the function and also gives that function a name. And then here we have some indented statements. So just like with the for loop, when we had the indented statements, that means all those indented statements were considered to be part of the loop. And in the case of a loop, that means that those statements are subject to run every time the loop runs. But in the case of a function, the indented statements tell the computer what Python commands are considered to be part of the function. So you can sort of think of a function as a set of tasks that, and here we'll see an example of this later on, a set of tasks that take in some values, do something with them, and give a result back. So this all these indented statements, that's basically illustrates what exactly the function is going to be doing when the function is told to actually do its thing. And here I just have an example that has one statement in it, just a simple print statement, but we will see examples that have multiple different statements in there. So now you might be wondering, how exactly do we get this function to do something? So that's where this bit on line 6 here comes into play. So if you want a function to actually do something, make sure this is not indented, by the way. If this is indented, you're actually not going to get any sort of result. You'll either get a result that does nothing, or it will actually crash the program. So just make sure that when you tell a function to run, make sure you want it to be unindented. You can call functions from within other functions, but you shouldn't have to worry about that for this particular project. So that's what this bit on line 6 here does. And the way that the program knows which function to run is because you'll see that the name of this right here matches up to the name that we gave the function up here. And also very important to keep in mind is you need this set of parentheses here. This might seem trivial, but if you don't have these parentheses here, it's just not going to work the way that you want it to. So when the program encounters this statement on line 6, it's going to halt its normal flow, go find this function whose name is given by this. It's going to go find that function, tell the function to run, and then only after the function is done running does the program continue on, and whatever statements might follow that. Only after the function is done running will it actually run those statements. So if we want to, we can go ahead and demonstrate what exactly happens here. So you can see I told my function to run on line 6 here, and the only thing inside that function was just to print out my function. You can see we didn't in fact get that result when we go over to the console. And if I want to, I can put more than one statement inside the function, and just like for loops, the indentation must be consistent, otherwise you'll get lovely error messages. And just like any other Python program, all the statements are run in order. So whatever's toward the top of the function will be run first, and whatever's toward the end will be run towards the end. But here you'll see we'll get sort of the same idea. We're telling the function to run by doing what's on line 8 here. Again, we type the name of the function followed by this empty set of parentheses. And if we do that, we'll get a result from all those print statements. Now, I'm going to demonstrate a few common mistakes that I see with functions. Remember how I said the parentheses were important? Well, if you forget those parentheses, this is what you'll get. The function won't actually run unless those parentheses are there. So if you want your function to actually run, you want to make sure that you include the parentheses. Otherwise, you are going to get a whole lot of nothing appearing in the console. A whole lot of nothing is going to be happening. Here's another common mistake that I encounter a lot when working with functions and teaching students about functions. Having the function defined by itself does absolutely nothing. And to prove it, I will run the program right now. I have this lovely function defined with all these fancy print statements, but you can see none of these print statements actually get run. And the reason why is because I have defined the function, I've given it a set of tasks, but nowhere in my program have I actually told the function to do its set of tasks. And that's again where this, what's referred to as a function call, comes into play. This must be here in order for my function, which is defined up here, to actually do its thing, which is to run these 3 print statements. So parentheses, important, and just the function by itself does nothing. And there's no limit. You can tell a function to run multiple times. And the way you do that is you just simply type out the same thing that we have here on line 7. So this will tell my function to run once, and this will tell my function to run a second time. You can see it did in fact run that function twice.